The Samsung Galaxy S9 versus the iPhone X. Which one is better? Which one should you guys get? Well, the S9 Unveil event is actually happening this Sunday, and we already know pretty much every single detail about the S9, from the actual design to all the major features, the exact CPU models, the amount of RAM, and so much more. And in this video, I'll be covering everything you need to know in terms of how the S9 compares to the iPhone X in terms of the design, the display, the camera, the performance, special features, software, battery, storage, price, and so much more. So grab some snacks, sit back, relax, and let's see which one is overall a better device, iPhone X or the Samsung Galaxy S9. Okay, so starting off with the design, the Samsung Galaxy S9 looks actually very similar to the S8 from last year. We get those curved edges on the front, while the biggest change to the S9 would actually be the dual camera module on the back, but that's only on the S9 Plus model. The iPhone X, however, is actually a massive change from the iPhone 7 or even the iPhone 8. We get the first major redesign in an iPhone since the original iPhone back in 2007, and then the home button has been removed, and the whole UI is actually gesture-based now, so big changes when it comes to the iPhone X versus the previous model, not so big changes when it comes to the S9 from the previous model. Now, in terms of which one looks better, the iPhone X or the Samsung Galaxy S9, that's pretty much a matter of preference. So with the iPhone X, you do get much thinner bezels than the S9. The only noticeable one would actually be the notch on the top, whereas with the S9, same as with the S8 from last year, the sides are actually curved, so you get zero bezels on the sides and some very thin ones on the top and the bottom, a bit thicker than on the iPhone X. But yeah, you have no notch on the S9. But when it comes to the actual materials, the iPhone X is a bit more premium made. We get a polished stainless steel frame versus the polished aluminum frame on the S9. But yeah, I mean, other than that, both of them are really good looking phones. Let me know in the comments which one of them do you actually prefer, and also subscribe and enable notifications, by the way, if you're new to the channel and you want to see more in-depth tech videos like this one. So moving on to the next section, we have the display. Okay, so both of them feature an OLED display manufactured by Samsung. Yeah, even the iPhone X has a Samsung-made display. But long story short, the one on the S9 has a much more vibrant color profile, while the iPhone X displays the colors a bit more natural. So I do prefer the punchier tones on the S9, but again, this is a matter of preference. Now, in terms of the brightness level and the viewing angle, the iPhone X, when compared to the S8 and the Note 8, it did have the brightest and also the widest display, with actually the best viewing angles. So DisplayMate even gave the iPhone X the best OLED display rating on a smartphone. We don't really know the actual display specs for the S9 yet, if it will feature any brightness or any panel improvements from the Note 8. Probably not, so do expect about the same level of panel performance as on the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. But probably the biggest display difference between these two phones is actually the display size. So with the S9, you can pick between a 5.8 inches and a 6.2 inches display on the S9 Plus, whereas with the iPhone X, you only have one option, and that's a 5.8 inch display. And on top of this, the iPhone X has a 19.5:9 aspect ratio versus 18.5:9 on the S9. So the overall display area on the iPhone X is actually smaller than even on the 5.8 inches Samsung Galaxy S9. So if you want a larger display, definitely go with the S9 or the S9 Plus. And then the S9 also has a higher resolution display than the iPhone X at 2960 by 1440 resolution versus 2436 by 1125. So this translates to about a 568 ppi on the S9 and the S9 Plus versus, yeah, same PPI on both, versus 458 PPI on the iPhone X. And I'll get back to why PPI is so important once we get to the special features section of this video. But the iPhone X does feature a True Tone display function, which basically adjusts the display color temperature so that it matches the environment that you're in. And it also accepts input at 120 Hz versus 60 Hz on a Samsung Galaxy S9. Now, one of the main things that I want to point out here is how well accidental touch rejection works on iOS. So I never had an issue with accidental touches on any iOS device, whereas on Samsung, it's extremely sensitive. You can literally use this thing through gloves, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage. It means that if you're not careful, your S9 will randomly open apps if it's not locked in your jeans. It will interact with the inside of your jeans. So yeah, keep this in mind when it comes to the display sensitivity. iOS handles accidental touch rejection much better than Samsung. Moving on to something pretty interesting, and that's the camera. So even though we don't really have any sample photos from the S9 until, you know, it's actually announced this Sunday, but spec-wise, it does look much better on paper than the iPhone X. So the main change would be, the main difference between these two phones would be the larger aperture, f1.5 aperture on the S9 versus the f1.8 aperture on the iPhone X. So this basically means that it's much better in low light. So at night, when you take photos at night without the flash, the S9 is going to be much better, at least on paper. The S9 Plus now features a dual camera module, so same as with the iPhone 10, you will be able to optically zoom in without losing any quality, and then also you get the depth of field / bokeh effect when you want to. Now the smaller S9 will still be able to do this, so that background blur effect, but instead of using 2 cameras, it would actually use a single camera with a variable aperture. We've seen this leaked in a few videos quite a number of times before, and this is how this thing is going to work like. Pretty exciting to seeing this thing in action. But yeah, in terms of the front-facing camera, the S9 now comes with an 8 megapixel camera, pretty much the same as before actually, but with a possible f1.6 aperture versus the 7 megapixel camera on the iPhone 10 with an f2.2 aperture. And same as with the S8, the S9 features a much wider angle for the front camera than the iPhone 10, so you get much more, you can get much more people in the shot and much more detail. And then the S9 also lets you record an up to Quad HD video with a front-facing camera versus 1080p on the iPhone 10. So yeah, front-facing camera-wise, if you care about selfies and videos with a front-facing camera, the S9 is a much better choice. Okay, now in terms of video, if you care about video, the iPhone 10 can do 4K video at 60 frames per second, and slow motion in 1080p up to 240. The S9 will be able to do 4K 60 as well, and slow motion in 720p and up to 960 frames per second. So yeah, if you care about slow motion, the S9 is again a better choice. So in terms of the camera, low light, slow motion, and front-facing camera, they all go to the S9. I'll be doing an in-depth Zone of Tech camera comparison, quite a few of them actually, as soon as the S9 is released. So definitely subscribe and enable notifications if you want to see those as soon as they're released. Now when it comes to the specs and the performance, the S9 comes with 4 GB of RAM, so yeah, same amount as the S8, and the S9 Plus comes with 6 GB of RAM, same amount as the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, which is a bit disappointing. The iPhone 10 does come with only 3 GB of RAM, but iOS actually has the best RAM management on a mobile OS, so you won't have any issues because of that. But in terms of the processing power, the Apple 11 chip is the most powerful processor in a smartphone, and that's by a huge margin. So I've actually done an in-depth speed test comparing the Apple A9 chip inside the iPhone 10 versus an Intel 6920 HQ processor, which is the most powerful Intel Skylake mobile processor, so for laptops that you can get. This is something that you find in the top-of-the-line 2016 MacBook Pro. And even when it came to video exports, the performance of the Apple 11 chip was very surprising. Again, more details about that in this video. But long story short, what you need to know is that the iPhone 10's processor, so the Apple 11 chip, is very close in performance to the top mobile processors from Intel, which is crazy. And the Snapdragon 845, a 2018 processor, is still weaker in terms of single-core performance than even Apple's A9 processor from back in 2015. So a huge difference in performance between these two phones. The Exynos 9810, which is the processor inside the international models of the S9, that one is a bit more powerful than the Snapdragon 845, which will be included in the US models, but not by that much. So overall, the iPhone 10 leads by a very noticeable margin when it comes to the performance. But the truth is, I mean, no one really edits video on their smartphone. Who does video editing on their smartphones? Let me know in the comments, probably none of you. So apart from gaming, there's nothing, and day-to-day use, there's not that much difference in performance between these two phones in, day-to-day performance, pretty much. Okay, so moving on to the special features now. There's so many features that I want to cover, so I'm just going to mention the ones that are unique to each device because, this is already a pretty long video. Okay, so on the S9 we have the DeX dock, which is actually the DeX pad in this case, so this is the new addition to the DeX family. So essentially you can use the S9 and connect it with the dock to a monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse, and essentially turn the S9 into a full-fledged computer. It's still running Android with Samsung skin on top, TouchWiz or Samsung Experience, but in case you would want to do that, you have that option with the Samsung Galaxy S9. You don't have it with the iPhone 10. And then on the S9, you also have an always-on display, which is amazing. You can pretty much see the time, your notifications, even when the phone is turned off, when the screen is turned off. So this is because it's an OLED display. For some reason, we don't have this on the iPhone 10, which also comes with an OLED display. Really not sure why. Maybe this is coming on iOS 12, but we don't have it yet. And then on the S9, we also have a headphone jack. So in case you need that, you have it on the S9, you don't have it on the iPhone 10. On the S9, you also have a microSD card if you want to extend the storage. And then finally, we have a fingerprint reader on the back on the S9, which, the iPhone 10 removed. So in case you still want a fingerprint reader, if you want to use that, you have it on the S9. Now, when it comes to the special features on the iPhone 10, well, we don't really have anything unique. Pretty much everything has already been added to the S9. So let's talk about the features that you get on both. So fast charging, wireless charging, stereo speakers. Yes, we have this on the S9 as well. This is something new, tuned by AKG. And then Face Unlock, we have Face ID on the iPhone 10 and the iris scanner and the front-facing camera for the S9, which actually work both at the same time to make the Face Unlock even faster and more secure. But in theory, the S9 should be faster overall when it comes to unlocking. The iPhone 10 should be more secure, but yeah, I will be doing some testing once I get my hands on the S9. And then both phones feature animojis. Yes, Samsung added animojis as well. And both feature water resistance, the S9 IP68 versus IP67 on the iPhone 10. But in actual water tests, they were both about the same. In some cases, the iPhone 10 was even more water resistant than the Samsung Galaxy S9, but keep in mind that water resistance is not covered by the warranty on either of these phones. So yeah, don't drop your phones in water because warranty doesn't really cover that. So when it comes to special features, the Samsung Galaxy S9 takes this one. Now, in terms of software and software experience, there's a very big difference between the two, and I'm not just talking about iOS versus Android here. So Samsung devices are known to be slow and laggy. This is because, similar to other Android manufacturers, Samsung developed their own skin or overlay on top of stock Android, and Samsung actually uses the heaviest skin out of all Android manufacturers. They add a lot of bloatware. For example, on Samsung devices, you'll have, you have the Google apps, and then you'll get a specific Samsung version of that specific app. So you'll end up having 2 gallery apps, 2 SMS apps, 2 email clients, 2 app stores. Yeah, I mean, for some reason, Samsung still uses, the Galaxy App Store. That's still a thing. And the list goes on and on. And yes, the S9 will still come with Bixby. The side button is still there, but it would be remappable according to a few surveys that Samsung sent out at least. But yeah, regardless, Bixby would still be pre-installed. So all of this bloatware, which you cannot really opt out of, will slow down your device quite a bit. And the whole UI experience on Samsung phones isn't that great because of this. If you don't agree with the fact that Samsung phones have lag, it's because you haven't tried using a Pixel phone or a OnePlus 5T or a new iOS device as your daily driver. So yeah. Also, apart from lag, Samsung devices are also well known for not getting updates on time. For example, my S8 is still running on Android 7.0, an OS which was announced back in 2016. So keep in mind that Google is about to release Android 8.2 fairly soon. And even the iPhone 5S, which was released back in 2013, 5 years ago, is still running on the latest version of iOS released just a few weeks ago. So software-wise, I'm not really talking about iOS versus Android here, but mostly Samsung's TouchWiz or Samsung Experience versus iOS when it comes to updates and fluidity, and there is a very, very big difference here. Okay, moving on to the battery, the iPhone 10 has a 2716 mAh battery versus 3000 and 3500 mAh on the S9 and the S9 Plus. Now, on top of all this, Samsung phones, they do have a very good power saving mode, which actually turns the entire UI black, so you get this dark mode, which Apple still lacks, officially at least. And comparing my S8 Plus to my iPhone 10, they last about the same, and this is considering that my S8 has an almost 1-year-old battery, S8 Plus by the way, while the iPhone 10 has just about a 3 months old battery, so keep this in mind. Okay, moving on to the storage. So the iPhone 10, you can get it in 64 and 256 gigabytes as the storage options. The S9 comes in 64, and you'll possibly get a 128 gigabytes option as well. But then with the S9, you can also expand that further with a microSD card if you wish, to up to an extra 256 gigabytes of storage. But yeah, do keep this in mind. The external storage is going to be much slower than the internal one. So you do get extra storage, but it's significantly slower than the internal one that you might get with the 256 gigabytes iPhone 10, for example. And finally, when it comes to the price, the iPhone 10 starts at $1,000, which I know is really expensive, but trust me, it's actually way more than that outside the US. So $1,000 is actually the cheapest price for an iPhone 10. So if you can get it at $1,000, you're a lucky person. So yeah, the S9 will be more expensive than the S8. Most reports are claiming a starting price of close to $900 in the US and around £800 in the UK. And then the S9 Plus would be around $100 or £80 more expensive than the S9. So yeah, they're both really expensive, but still cheaper than the iPhone 10. Okay, so as a conclusion, which one should you guys get? Which one is a better device, the Samsung Galaxy S9 or the iPhone 10? Well, the Samsung Galaxy S9 wins in terms of its display size, the camera, the features, and the price. And then the iPhone 10 wins when it comes to the build material, so the build quality, and also the updates and the fluidity. So yeah, this has been pretty much it. Video subscribe if you want to see more interesting in-depth tech videos like this one and more in-depth comparisons. And also don't forget to turn on notifications by tapping on the bell icon. That way you won't miss any new videos. And finally, let me know in the comments what do you guys think. Which one will you guys pick? Which one do you think is better? iPhone 10, Samsung Galaxy S9, and why. Which one are you going to get? And this has been pretty much it. Stay tuned for more comparisons. I'm Daniel. Because you like, if you enjoyed it, to let me know. Yeah, another awkward ending. Cool. See you guys in my next one. Zonotech, signing out. Cheers.